Oh my gosh, you're back. And if you're new here, welcome to one of the most warm environments that you could be a part of. Alright, so you got your fundamentals down. Now you want to add some advanced effects and motions that'll help your video stand out and look amazing. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So, subscribe and like because I have content that you will enjoy, and this is the kind of video that will help people who need to add more to their edits. Oh yeah, so you guys know how it feels for me to release these edits and put how I feel into an edit. And I want you to know I do this through music too. It feels great to release my music. So I have an album and a single that I just released on all platforms under the name Shillarious. There is a link in the description and I highly recommend that you click it because if you enjoy what I do on this channel, you will most likely enjoy what I do through my music. So thank you for clicking that because it means a lot to me when people hear the music that I put a lot of time into. Okay, so let's jump into this. I know that when I'm failing to make an effect, I get really pissed because I just want my edit to look really nice. Your mind has probably been moving around a lot so far, so feel free to just take a second to pause. Okay, let's jump into this. I want to make this tutorial as quick as possible because I want to be a productive use of your time. I'm going to assume you have everything else pretty much set up. Today I'm going to be using my song from my last album. We're going to look at a couple of things. First, I want to dive into a really cool screen pump kind of effect that can be applied in different ways in different parts of your edit. Let me just peep this part of the song that we're looking at here.
Should he show that hold up mess?
I'll leave the color grading and real smart motion blur there, but I'll turn them off. So let me just delete all these layers except for the raw clip, and I'll take off the effects and shake. And green is the audio stuff, so don't worry about what's in green because that's just for the sound effects and music. I have a scale keyframe here. Let me just get rid of that. I did time remap this. I'm not going to go into time remapping. I already showed how to do that. Here's how we're going to bring this to life. First, duplicate the clip and add an effect called edge detect. A lot of you are probably familiar with that. I am assuming that you do have the Sapphire plugin for this. That's the only other plugin that I'm using for this tutorial. So now we have this interesting overlay. I usually do RGB or chroma. You can mess around with these settings, but originally that's how I like it. I don't like to use any other presets, but you can mess around with that. So on this duplicated layer, I'm gonna keyframe the opacity with like 10 frames in between these keyframes. And so it goes from 0 to 100 to 0. Then we're gonna make this blending mode to something like add mode, and there you go.
That hold up mess.
It's like a really cool glow effect. And if you want to make this look a little better, what we could do is add turbulent displacement and adjust this amount. Doesn't really matter if you go in or out for the displacement. That'll give it more of a presence in that edge detect.
Should he show that hold up mess quick?
I mean, with different lighting and stuff, this effect is going to be brought out more. It's a really cool way to add some color variance on this impact. To add to this impact, I'm going to add a screen pump. I'm going to Control-Alt-Y to make an adjustment layer, and I'm going to do a shake screen pump just on top of this. So add S shake. I'm going to be loading a preset that I showed in my last video, but you probably don't want to click onto another video, so I'm just going to show you what these values are for this preset. We have X, Y, and Z, and if you want to just pause the video to look at these values, if you don't already have this preset, then you are more than welcome to do that. Y has a 42 for the random amplitude. You get the gist. So if you want to look at these values, there they are for you. I'm going to change this amplitude from 8 to something like 5.5, we'll say, and I'm going to click on the stopwatch for keyframe and go around like 8 frames later and set this amplitude to 0. If we just select these, click F9, just so we can be a little cleaner with this, I'm gonna take off the edges of this by clicking Control-Shift-T on the sides of the adjustment layer. We'll click on these keyframes and open up the graph editor. Make sure you're in speed graph, and to zoom in, by the way, I'm holding Alt and scrolling up or down. And to go left and right, I'm holding Shift and scrolling up or down. So we're going to take this middle right handle and put it to like 16 influence, and for this right handle we're going to put it to like 65, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact. And do the same for the other side, so 16 for this middle handle and 65 for the other one. And there's your shake, and with the edge detect below that, I think that looks great. I'm also going to take off the sides of this just because I don't want to have a cluttered workspace.
Show that hold up mess quick.
Okay, now I want to look at the rest of this clip and what we can do to make it look cooler. Obviously, I'm assuming you already have this synced up and time remapped. So with the original clip selected, we're gonna duplicate it. Look up an effect called jitter frames. So this is gonna show time passing in a pretty cool way. And this is the same kind of pattern that we applied to add this edge detect effect. You generally want to do this kind of stuff on the markers. I mean, for this, we're just showing time passing, so it's okay if it's not on the marker. I'm just gonna show it where character is walking. Opacity, we're gonna keyframe from 100 to 0. And it doesn't have to be exactly a certain number of frames when you go from keyframing the opacity. For now, I'm just doing something like 8 to 10, but you can mess around with that. I'm also going to trim off the sides here with Control-Shift-D and just delete the edges because I don't want it to get cluttered. When we look at this,
Buff the baby like Gerber and shit, he show
so cool, the footage kind of jitters as the character goes forward, and we're just going to add a blending mode to this, and again, you have a lot of flexibility as to what you choose here. Like if we do something like darken, it also looks really cool. It's like it doesn't just smother the rest of the video too much.
buff the baby like Gerber and shit, he show that. Hold up, mess quick.
So, I mean, we just took the video from
The baby like Gerber and shit, he show that. Hold up, mess quick. Hope I
all the way to,
the baby like Gerber and shit, he show that. Hold up, mess quick. Hope
I did put on my color grading and motion blur for that. You get the point. You can do a lot with blending modes and effects that work well on top of each other. Now I want to do some work with track mats and transition into a new clip with some cinematics. For tutorial's sake, I'm just going to use some random cinematics. If I wanted to make these look really professional, I would probably reenact these cinematics and record them in-game. I'm going to delete these layers here and start from scratch, and we want to make a solid that kind of comes up into the middle of the screen. Doesn't matter what color, obviously, we got to go pink here, so I'm gonna name this bottom matte and drag this underneath our motion blur and color grading, and I'm gonna cut this with Control-Shift-D just so that it starts where I want to. For this, I'm going to use solids. You can also use shape layers. I'm going to click on P to whip out my position keyframes and drag this out like around 8 frames. And I'm going to bring this down so it covers half the screen. And to make sure, I'm going to click this and make sure it's on title action safe. Now I can just drag this layer right around here. Now if I go all the way to the first frame, I can drag this all the way down, and we have this animation of the solid coming up. I'll take off the title action safe, and we can just ease that and go into the graph here and just do a pretty left side heavy influence here. Okay, duplicate this bottom mat, rename it top mat, and go to where this last keyframe is for the bottom mat and drag this top mat to that one. Now I'll click U, and we want to make this start above. So we want to lower this position Y value so that it is all the way at the top here. Now I'm going to go to the 5th marker and drag this so that it covers up the rest of the half of the screen. And boom. This top mat slides into the middle of the screen. And just double check the graph here, and it's got the same graph. So that's good. That's what we want. Make sure you're in speed graph for that.
hope I don't bust quick.
Dope. We got these 2 mats covering up the screen, and then what we're gonna do is Control Y again to make a. Let's change this up. We'll go with some light green here, and disable this for a second. Just take off the eye so we can draw a circle. You can click Q to cycle through your ellipse and rectangle and all that, or you could just hold this and go to ellipse tool. I'm going to click in the middle of the screen, hold Control and Shift, or Command and Shift if you're on a Mac, and drag the circle all the way out so that it covers the screen. And then I'm going to enable this layer again so I can see it. And if we untwirl this so that we can see the mask, and we just click on Mask Expansion, then we can have a keyframe set for that. And now if we drag this try saying Mask Expansion 5 times fast. I just want to drag this all the way down so that it's not visible. And now we got this animation of the circle opening up, and I can put it to finish at the 6th marker because this is a pretty short amount of frames here, And I'm going to select these keyframes, click F9, go into the graph editor again, and just drag it for a left side influence.
Bust quick, shoddy.
That's a little too much. I'm just going to give it a little more.
Bust quick, shoddy finna rub. I know I.
I'm going to rename this circle matte. So I want this bottom matte to be covered by the Assault Trooper cinematic, and I've gone over how to time map these types of cinematics in my last tutorial, so if you don't know how to do that, check that out. I'm going to drag it into my comp and make sure it's below the bottom matte. And I'm going to click Ctrl-Alt-T to time map it, add a keyframe for the first frame, solo this layer just so I can see where I want it to end. Yeah, I want it to end right here, so I'll set another time map keyframe there. And then I'm gonna go to the 6th marker and drag this time map keyframe to the 6th marker, because that's when this cinematic is not going to be visible anymore. And then I'm going to select these keyframes, click F9, go into the graph, and do that time mapping type of curve. I would spend more time on that. Great, we got our first running cinematic and it's below our bottom matte. And now we can do the second cinematic, which we're going to use this running character for, and put it below, make sure it's below the top matte, and it starts at the same time. If we click Ctrl-Alt-T, we're just going to do very similar to what we did with the Assault Trooper, and I'm soloing this layer just so I can see where I want it to end. I think this is a good spot. Go to the 6th marker, drag it in, cut off the edge that we don't need, select these keyframes, click F9 to time map, and do a basic S curve. Last thing we need to import to cover our circle matte is this trick shot clip. So I'm not gonna time map this because it's a trick shot clip and you would want to spend time time mapping that. So we're gonna unsolo the layers that we were soloing. Great, now we got our clips set up. We're gonna do one at a time here. So let's look at the Assault Trooper. If you're not able to see these, click toggle switchers and modes, and we're going to click alpha matte, bottom matte. So with the Assault Trooper cinematic selected, click alpha matte so that it takes up any space that this bottom matte was taking up. And you're going to do the same exact thing for the Zenith, or whatever cinematic you're using. Click attract matte for that cinematic and click alpha matte, top matte. And now those cinematics are covering up any space that the solids had taken up. Lastly, just do it for the circle and the trick shot. So we covered up those solids with the clips. That's a really nice looking way to incorporate clips and transitions. And now that your cinematic is part of a track matte, you can move it around to where you think it looks best without worrying about how it comes onto the screen. And these are just the basics of it. You can add a bunch of effects to this, like maybe I would add some warp repeat here on this character, keyframe that from coming from far to close. Now it could look pretty cool. Like for instance, let me just mess with this Z distance here and keyframe this warp repeat, and this could just go on for a while where you just do stuff like that. And let me wrap this X and Y, and
Hope I don't bust quick, shoddy.
You could add some S-grunge here as well. Load a preset. Boom, and change up those colors a bit too if you want. Just keep on going with that. Add something like chromatic aberration. I mean, that's just your bottom cinematic. So I mean, you get the gist. You get these kinds of things down and then you can really just go your own route with it and experiment with all those creative possibilities. The matte itself can have effects on it. Like take the circle matte for example. You can pre-comp this with the clip of the trick shot and add a drop shadow, for example. I mean, the list goes on. Or you could add a warp repeat and just have it do like a bit of a zoom out type of effect.
I don't bust quick, shoddy.
We could even key this blue out and keyframe that from going from 100 to 0. There's so much to do. I'm just showing the technique of how this works and you're in control of how everything else is put together. Alright guys, I am showing how to do the technical side of things. Now listen, each edit has a certain vibe to it. Editing to a hard rap song is going to be a lot different from editing to a really chill lo-fi type of beat. Make sure that you have a reason for going with a certain type of effect or transition. Like in this edit, it's kind of a feel-good type of song in the background, so we're going with like some fun transitions. So that's why I thought it'd be cool to go with the circle. But if you're going to a really hard beat, then obviously you want to do something different and maybe do some like darker effects. Guys, I really hope this was helpful. Like, it is so great to know that I can provide some sort of assistance when you are doing things that are really cool. Again, if you haven't liked and subscribed, do that because I work hard to make this kind of stuff for you and I want to see the best of you, so it just helps me connect more with you guys. My Discord server is in the description as well. You're more than welcome to join that and I can answer any questions that you have. My Spotify and my music is in the description of this video, so peep that because I want you to hear my music too. If you made it to the end of this video, then wow, you are a true Shillionaire and I love you so much. Thank you for watching, and you are welcome for providing what I know so that you can use what I know to make stuff that is a lot better. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your quarantine.